Okay, good morning and welcome to chapter 33 of The Real Me. We are nearing the end. Uh, Maybe this week or next week we'll be finishing this book. Chapter 3 is titled The 3 Weeks. Um, this section of the book is talking about various times on the Jewish calendar that we don't really understand, have a good perspective according to the author of, or the proper perspective. I'm sorry about the lighting over here. The sun is shining in over here on one side of my face and it's dark on the other side, kind of like Batman or something like that. Anyway, he starts off the chapter. There's a period of time that, at least superficially, seems to require living through a minor depression. Supposedly, we are to arouse within ourselves feelings of intense sadness, which is intended to break our spirit and make us despondent. This is the period called the 3 weeks, or in Chazal's terminology, Bein HaMetzorim. He continues, feeling small and empty. During this time, we are meant to agonize over the great loss of the Beis HaMikdash. We all know the axiom that any generation that did not merit the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash is as if it was destroyed in their time. If so, we are all guilty of this great and awesome tragedy that has befallen our people and the world. We have to be angry at ourselves, and not only we have to be angry at ourselves, and not only didn't we bring out about the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, but that we aren't really waiting for it either. After all, how many of us are really waiting impatiently for Mashiach? I know I'm waiting for Mashiach. And if so, if possibly, we possibly fall into the category of those who do not yearn for him and therefore will not merit seeing him. Heaven forbid. Trying to mourn with this approach gives us the feeling that we are guilty for all the tragedies that occurred, causing damage and not effectively rectifying the situation. There is no hope to really mourn the Korban. It is distant from us and we can't relate to it. So the only thing to do is to wait for these weeks to pass by somehow. Then we can go back to our regular lives without the added restrictions. What a wasted opportunity. He says the 3 weeks are not meant to cause feelings of sadness and despair. On the contrary, this period is actually geared towards the elevation of the spirit. If low spirits might be tolerable at other times of the year, during the 3 weeks it is crucial to feel a special inner glory if we are truly appreciate the message of this midsummer period. Now, when I was growing up, the 3 weeks was always inconveniently located in the middle of the summer. You know, when you're away at camp, sleepaway camp, day camp, you can't, during the 9 days, you can't go swimming. Of course, instructional swimming is okay, but the free swim is not okay. And you don't really feel so much in camp until Tisha B'Av, sleepaway camp, they try to do a thing, but no one likes to fast, and no one likes the restrictions of 3 weeks. Nowadays, I have a different perspective. I personally, the whole summer, I used to love the summer. I was telling my parents on the phone the other day, I used to love the summer. Because, growing up in New York, the winters are always harsh winter weather, a lot of snow and stuff like that. It wasn't fun to be around. And the summers were nice. The springs were nice in America. Summer is nice. You go to camp. You had a good time. Even when I was older, I wasn't going to camp. I still enjoyed the summers. I came here to Israel, and I don't know. There's no spring here in Israel. It just goes straight to summer, Um, and the weather, one of the nice things in Israel, it doesn't rain here during the summer. You never have to worry about rain. But I feel more the period of Sphira with all the restrictions. You can't shave, you can't listen to music. 3 weeks also, and then you have the whole period of starting from Slichos, till we just finished yesterday, Simchas Torah. Although it's a lot of celebration, but doing tshuva is a hard thing. Yom Noraim, you're filled with fear of the impending judgment of Hashem, even until Hoshana Rabbah. A lot of people in these circles talk about Pitka Tava, that you should have a good note come down from Shamayim. That's the final judgment. Only over here, when I became Haredi, did I find out that Yom Kippur is not really the end, really happened till Hoshana Rabbah. So the whole period is marked by angst and fear of what the impending judgment will be for the whole year. Because every year I hear this, your whole year is determined in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Hoshana Rabbah, and that's it. It's sealed. You can't change it after that. So make sure you do your best job to daven and to plea with Hashem that you should have a good year. So that's the cumulative summer. Half of the summer is spent Yom Noraim, Sphira, and Bein HaMetzorim, the 3 weeks. So it's a hard time. So he says basically that it should be an amazing time. And he says we shouldn't, of course, never go into depression or despair the proper perspective, he says, on the Korban nowadays, even though we can't feel it. The Shulchan Aruch famously says in the first Simon of Shulchan Aruch that you should be mitzvah on the fact that you can't be mitzvah. That's what the recommendation of the Shulchan Aruch is, that if you can't feel the lack of the Beis Hamikdash, you should feel sad that you don't feel sad. So that's the Shulchan Aruch's advice, but this book has different advice. He says, we should think, the proper way to contemplate the Korban is think about, in general, how Jews are looked down upon in the world. Israel is looked down upon by other nations. Israel has to hold itself to a higher standard than the rest of the world. People at Gaza, they shoot rockets in here into Israel at civilians, and Israel is targeting, places of weapons, buildings, military buildings, only people from the military. And if it'll strike even one child, they won't engage in that in that form of war and dropping a missile where it might, because of what the world will say about them. Israel is not held to a fair standard. I mean, another country would shoot rockets at their civilians, would retaliate against the other country's civilians also. I mean, it's not fair what they're doing. Israel can't kill anyone; they only have to target missiles. And if they put their missiles in a building, with a hospital, or a building with a news station, like I think the AP building was destroyed in Gaza in one of the recent wars, so somehow Israel is held responsible. So in terms of, the other world's looking at Israel, Israel is held accountable. There's a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. It used to be the Jew, when time was the Beis Hamikdash, everyone looked at the Jews as the kings of the world. They had the Beis Hamikdash. They were the most successful nation. Here he says, even if he does admit that nowadays there is affluence in the Jewish community, but, it's not the same, apparently, as the affluence of the non-Jewish world, which I don't agree with at all. I think, there was a sign I saw, some black man holding up a sign in Times Square or something like that. Google it, Jews control the USA, I think it was. Jews control the world, or the USA. Google it, Out of the Forbes 400, I guess, the 400 richest people in the world, completely crazy number. I think 25% of them are Jewish, which is completely disproportionate to the amount of Jews in the world, because how many, according to various, countings of Jews in the world, there's 14 million, 22 million, the world is nearing 8 billion people, and be soon. So, to say 25% of the richest 400 people in the world are Jewish, and then millionaires also, it's disproportionate. Maybe 10% of all the millionaires are Jewish in the world. So it's crazy, the wealth and abundance. That was the brachos that Yaakov got. He stole the brachos from Esav, in a certain sense. So we have that affluence. So to say we're looked down upon, and I also think, anti-Semitism, even though everyone says, it's terrible, and there's attacks in Brooklyn and Borough Park and places like that. And in Israel, for sure, you see, that the terrorists over here are targeting Israeli citizens, the Israeli military. Listen, there's always been anti-Semitism, but he even admits it's not as bad as certain periods in history, like Germany, like the expulsion from Spain in 1492. There were, the Crusades and things like that. Relatively now, I mean, I think Jews are, every opportunity that exists in the world for success is available to Jewish people also, at least in the Western Hemisphere. Including even the NBA. There was a prospect from YU University, who was trying to get into the NBA, Ryan Terrell. Didn't get drafted. I don't know his status now, but, and they were even saying, interesting thing, they said, technically he probably wasn't, he played in Division 3, which is the lowest division. He was the best player of the year, but Division 3 is Division 3. Compared to Division 1 schools, he had no chance. But they were saying that besides the fact that he's a very good shooter, he could be a role player in the NBA. No one sees him being a star in the NBA, but he could be a role player in the NBA, maybe off the bench, spot-up shooter. What was working as advantage, one scout said, was that his narrative, he comes from he's an Orthodox Jew, and he said he wouldn't drive to games on Shabbos. He would play on Shabbos, but he would, stay in a hotel right next to the arena and go over there and, Esther Dakot. he would go to the arena and he would walk to the arena. He wouldn't violate Shabbos, at least not in public. So he's trying to keep Shabbos. Even sports, which is never an arena that Orthodox Jewish people would be part of. Hollywood is filled with Jewish people. Um, you know, Almost every entertainment career, certainly every financial business is full of Jews. Jews are very successful nowadays. So I don't agree with the fact that, and anti-Semitism always existed. I mean, is it terrible now? I don't think it's terrible now. I think more and more Jews are being accepted into the world, especially in America, where there's such a focus on liberal rights. I don't know if there's a good thing for Judaism or a bad thing for Judaism, but even transgender people or even queer people. I actually read about this guy Ezra Miller. He's in the news now. He's a Jewish guy. I think his father's Jewish. I don't know. His mother's Jewish from New Jersey. And Wikipedia, I was reading it, and it says they refer to themselves as God or Jesus or the Messiah. And I'm like, wait a second. They just call him Ezra Miller. Who's they? I mean, and then I realized that he prefers to be referred to as a pronoun as they. I mean, he doesn't identify as a male or a female. He's not really sure, or as both maybe. So this guy Ezra Miller, a Jewish guy, he's in the news now for doing a lot of misdemeanor crimes all across America. So to say that there's no opportunities now for Jewish people, I don't think so. The anti-Semitism, people are giving the same rights to even gay, lesbian people, transgender people. I don't think Jews are being discriminated against so much. They are. I mean, I wouldn't make a big deal. As long as you make a big deal out of something, it causes the opposite reaction, causes more hatred. So that's one thing. That's what he says. So he says that's what we shall feel. We shall feel Israel is looked down upon, Jews are looked down upon. That's the gullus that we suffer from today, because in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, this was prosperity for the Jewish nation, financially, and in recognition, the world recognized the Jews as maybe the strongest nation in the world. I don't know if that's true. They were the strongest nation. Maybe in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, time of the second Beis Hamikdash, I don't think so. During those years, 300 BC, 200 BC, it was the Greek Empire over there, the Seleucid, Ptolemaic Greek empires. Those were the main empires, with Alexander the Great. And Jews weren't the greatest in that era. And then he says there's a second for people. He said there is a higher level ever that can be attained by B'nai Torah who have developed a sensitivity regarding service of Hashem and Limud Torah. He says the main reaction and the main thought that we should think about the fact that we're on a lower level, the stratosphere in terms of financially success and things like that, and in terms of recognition in the world. And then he says for people that are on a high level, Talmidei Chachamim, they should think about pain and smallness. He says our wretched material state as a result of the Churban is merely a reflection of an inferior spiritual state. He should talk about how you read us Hadoros, how nowadays we have struggles with things like the iPhone, looking at the internet or not, or should we waste our life with foolishness or our cell phones? He said it used to be our challenges were much more weightier things. Should we cling to the service of Hashem alone or swept along to idol worship? Wait a second. Idol worship or internet? Idol worship, that was an important thing. Internet, come on, anyone can just reject the internet. You don't need the internet at all. This is a great spiritual temptation. The sinners of our people knew how to enlist the malachim and to use practical Kabbalah. We don't have these abilities today. He says we don't have the abilities anymore to use Kabbalah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a more time where proliferation of Kabbalah. I saw even before Simchas Torah, there was a thing you're supposed to say before Simchas Torah, before Shmini Atzeres, Aleinu L'Shabeach, the second paragraph. You're supposed to say it 4 times the regular way and 3 times with the words backwards. I don't know how that's supposed to help. They just wrote up this backward words from some Kabbalistic source. Not really sure where it's from. He says there used to be even Achav and Menashe, wicked kings. They would delve into Torah. Nowadays, that's what we're mourning nowadays. We're mourning not just the physical, degradation of the Jews. We're mourning also the spirit, our lower spiritual level. I mentioned before, I disagree with this. I don't think we're on a lower spiritual level. I think that basic spirituality is really your decision making, which is the only thing we're entitled to. And just like You had Bechira over different things, whether you want to follow Hashem or do Avodah Zarah, idol worship, back then. Whether you want to use the internet or not, I think you should use the internet, but that's besides the point. But you have to make decisions now also. They're different decisions based on different times, different technological advances in our times. I don't think they're on a higher level back then in terms of spirituality. What he says about, like you mentioned, the first point that he mentioned, that we should feel bad that we're looked down upon by the nations and anti-Semitism. I don't know. I don't know if there's ever been a time where we're given the opportunities. The Jews are given opportunities. Even Orthodox Jews, I saw on the show Shark Tank, this guy Bunim Laskin, who's the founder of Swimply, which is basically like an Airbnb for swimming pools. He walked onto Shark Tank with a yarmulke and Sitzes hanging out. Sitzes hanging out onto Shark Tank. He didn't get a deal. He was 19 years old, but he didn't get a deal. But he walked on with his Sitzes hanging out, and he got a fair shot from all, from these millionaires or billionaires, trying to raise money for his app. And Ben Shapiro was famous to them. And Ben Shapiro wears the yarmulke. When we've ever had a person wearing a yarmulke attain such fame, is one of the major newscasters there is nowadays. Certainly on the conservative side of politics. So we've never had such affluence before, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of, control of the media by religious people and access to all the echelons of entertainment. And so I mean it's been a pretty good time, thankfully God. Now thank God now. Maybe it's because Mashiach is imminent, he's about to come. So I don't agree with both of the points that he's saying. And so to get back to the original point, that the problem he has that forced him to give these explanations how we can feel and despair, but still maintain our feeling of self-worth. Again, I've said many times, I don't think it's a bad thing to be sad. He's coming with the notion that simcha is an integral part of Judaism, it's a mitzvah to always be happy. I don't think that's true. I don't think you're always supposed to be happy. The point of Bein HaMetzarim is to actually feel sad. And, I don't know if I'm a big tzaddik or not, but I remember I tried really hard during Bein HaMetzarim to keep the halachas. They're supposed to make you sad. I mean, there's a halacha, the Ramah says you're supposed to sleep on a stone on the night of Tisha B'Av. I actually did that for a couple of years. I asked my Rosh Hashiva if I could take a stone from the forest. I didn't know if it was Gezel or not. He thought it was comical that I was following the Ramah, but hey, I was following the Ramah. I keep the Shulchan Aruch, Eventually I stopped, but, I slept on the top of a laundry bin or something like that. I didn't have a rock when I was back in America, but, I try to keep the Shulchan Aruch as much as possible. I slept on the floor, On the night of Tisha B'Av one year, I sat in my room, I turned the lights up, and I cried for an hour, and I really felt it. I really actually felt the Chorban. I don't know how I felt it. I felt, the tumah in the world and the lack of Chorban, but I actually felt it. I was crying. It actually brought me to tears. Maybe I was on a high level back then, but I don't think it's a bad thing to be sad. And for 3 weeks of the year, yes, whatever the Beis HaMikdash is, we don't know what will be Bayis Shlishi and what is the Beis HaMikdash. We don't know what it is to live with the Beis HaMikdash. We know it's a great thing. Maybe it's not Olam Haba, but it's a great thing. We're waiting for that time for Mashiach to come and usher in this new era with the Beis HaMikdash. We know it's a great thing, and we know we don't have it. So you should feel bad. If you can't feel bad, the Shulchan Aruch says you should feel bad that you don't feel bad. Right? So at least the Shulchan Aruch gives you a good advice. What he's saying over here, he's minimizing, and he's saying that this place, 3 weeks is crucial to feel a special inner glory. We're supposed to feel even better, even happier during this time, and the reason you should feel sad is because we're looked down upon. But really, I'm really an important person. No. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be depressed a little bit. And part of Cheshbon Nefesh and part of making decisions is hard. It's really hard. This world, you have to realize that simcha is not like the Bresler always say, mitzvah gedol yos b'simcha. No, when you do, like Rav Moshe Feinstein says, simcha gedol yos b'mitzvah. Maybe when you do mitzvah, supposed to be happy. Other times, the rest of the time you're not doing mitzvahs, you don't have to be happy, right? After you overcome the difficult test that life is, the game that life is, you could be happy. Before that, while you're working on something, when you're going through a project, when you're working hard on a project, when you're a construction worker and you're working on a building, it's hard, it's painful, it's cumbersome to carry all these things. So carry these bricks and things like that. It's hard. It's hard to make decisions all the time and not to have freedom. Everyone wants freedom from decision making, but it's not easy. And during these 3 weeks is a specific time where the halacha states that we should be sad, and you're supposed to be sad, and you're supposed to cry. I'm sorry, during Avelos also you're supposed to be sad, or at least you're allowed to be sad. The Torah recognizes that people have human emotions, just like you have an emotion of happiness. It doesn't mean you're supposed to always be happy and not be sad. The Constitution recognizes the freedom of a person's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's hard to be happy, much easier to be sad. So don't ignore the basic emotional need that people have to be sad. You're allowed to be sad, and specifically during the 3 weeks, you should be sad. I'm sorry, you should be sad. You should keep the halachas of them. Now, it's hard to keep all the practical halachas. Not taking a shower the 9 days. I think we're all mefunakim nowadays, and we're accustomed to taking showers. You're allowed to take a shower. You want to be like the Chazon Ish and not take a shower, and apparently you don't smell for 9 days. I don't know exactly how that works. I think I tried doing that for a couple of years. I don't know if people smelled bad and they didn't say anything, or it's miraculous they didn't smell bad. But I think when mefunakim, you should take showers. We should try to keep the halachas as much as we can, but basically at least try to feel sad and to allow yourself to be sad, because sadness is a natural emotion. And when you deny yourself natural emotions, you're denying yourself human existence, because part of being a human being is having emotion, having feelings. And if you say you only have to be happy, that means basically, that's the word gay. Gay means to always be happy, to be blissful, a blissful ignorance. When you're ignoring the fact that you have emotions, you think everything is good. People always say everything, Baruch Hashem, everything's very good. No, not everything is good. Not everything is good. Don't always answer Baruch Hashem. Tell people what you really feel. You shouldn't have emotional baggage where you're burdening people with all your sorrows, but be honest with people. If something's not going well, tell people about it, especially with your wife, maybe your kids. Sometimes you should be honest, because if you can't express your emotion of sadness, you also can't express your emotion of happiness, because you think you're always happy. There's no point in your happiness. It's like someone who cries wolf. They say there's a problem. There's really no problem. You can't believe them anymore. So if someone says they're happy when they're really not, you can't believe them anymore. You can't have a conversation. You can't have an open relationship with someone who's always telling you they're happy, because they're ignoring sadness. It's not a possibility, especially if it's one of the midos. You have to always be happy. It's the wrong attitude. You have to be sad sometimes. Most of the time you are sad until you have success in life, and you can enjoy a little bit. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.